back after a week off, talking everything Arizona State football. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me, as always, my partner in crime, Big John Caldwell. And Big John, losses are never easy to take, especially on the road. But it was a Big 12 conference opener for ASU, and they fall in Lubbock to the Texas Tech Red Raiders, 30-22. And we'll get into that certainly. I know it was a little over a week ago. Both of us said, we took the bye week off, just like the team, to kind of get our heads together. I know I rewatched some of the game because I had to run to a party for my family, so I couldn't watch the second half, a lot of the second half. But still some things that we can take from this. I think that this young team, both players and coaching staff, can apply going forward. And Dilly was out coached by Joey McGuire. There were some instances that I think he could have definitely learned from. And we'll get into that as we transition into this week's game against Kansas. Devils coming off a bye. Hopefully they're all the better for it as they welcome the Jayhawks, the reeling Kansas Jayhawks, to Tempe this coming Saturday evening. But we're going to get into all of that. Certainly, as always, we'll break it all down for you. But we got to start with last week's game. Devils dropped their Big 12 opener, their first game on the season, their first loss of 2024, 30-22 to Texas Tech. And it looked like Texas Tech they were hammered down the whole game with their offense. 334 yards. But the big surprise was the 133 rushing yards. This was a team that had been showing itself capable of running the ball, but it had been a little inconsistent with what they've done on the ground. But they, Taj Brooks and company definitely came up big, and they were able to control the clock and move with a lot of consistency. They were 8 of 19 on third down. ASU managed to get off the field a little bit later in what turned out to be garbage time, but they were very effective. They put themselves in a lot of third and manageable in the first about three quarters. They were able to sustain some drives. And they took a lead early. They went up 14-0 after the first quarter. ASU was forced to battle back, and they just weren't able to climb out of that hole after Texas Tech took that early lead. So,
and we're not built for it. We're not built for for keeping up by two scores, at least not yet. And with a young quarterback who's kind of finding his way, and we're trying to figure out the right kind of routes and the right kind of scheme for him to excel in and put the players in the best position to thrive. You just can't get down by two scores like that. And so,
when you don't have a great passing attack, it does make it very difficult to win a shootout type game, a game where a lot of points are being scored, teams are trading scores. Look at that Alabama-Georgia game on Saturday, the way they went back and forth there towards the end. That's not really a game that ASU is built to hang in down the stretch, at least not at the moment down the stretch. I mean, they have some athletes, have a little bit of firepower, but they're mainly built on their ground game, and that definitely struggled as we go on as we move on in this game. Texas Tech put up some nice numbers. Taj Brooks, 27 carries, 117 yards. Josh Kelly, to me, was the MVP in this game. 10 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Felt like every time Baron Morton needed a first down or needed to move the ball down the field, he was looking for Josh Kelly, and he was usually open. But another big story from this game were the penalties. This was a very undisciplined, very sloppy game. ASU ended up with 8 penalties for 69 yards. Texas Tech 9 for 94. But ultimately, it was the timeliness of the penalties.
Right,
that was the big factor, and ASU's just seemed to come at the absolute wrong time.
I mean, stopping them in their own, deep in their territory, and potentially getting the ball back, and then having Rouser stand over and taunt a player, that cost you a score. In fact, it resulted in a score. They sustained their drive and they went down and scored on it. So there's a place where the turnover should have occurred. And I know we talked about in the pre-show, he's a very emotional guy, but I think he's got to find a way now to play with passion, play with enthusiasm, and keep the emotions in check a little bit.
That's fine between the whistles, and I
Mhm.
was when you stand over a player like that and taunt them, refs are just dying to flag you for that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
you can celebrate, but celebrate with your teammates running off the field because it's fourth down and you just got a big stop. Celebrate coming off the field or on the sideline. Don't stand over a guy and make him look bad because the refs are just going to flag that every single time. It doesn't set a good example for people watching. It doesn't set. It's just not. There's no place for it. Bottom line. So and ASU's also, they can't afford to do that to themselves because this is not, they're not Miami circa 2001 where, you can get away with that stuff because you got a ton of talent on your team. ASU doesn't have that. They're not built that way. They can't be shooting themselves in the foot and then expecting the talent that they have to carry them through it.
We're not a juggernaut on offense. We're not going to score 40 or more points yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even. We're only. I mean, we're good on defense for the most part, but we're not a force by any stretch right now. So that's something that definitely needs to be cleaned up. They can't be shooting themselves. It looked like a Herm Edwards or Dennis Erickson team out there at times. But ASU is only able to, like I said, their rushing attack wasn't very effective. They only rushed for 94 yards, averaged 3 yards a carry. Texas Tech rush defense coming into the game was giving up 180 yards a game, and they were, stacking the box, trying everything they could to get ASU to throw the ball. And Sam Levitt did end up with some decent numbers: 22 of 38, 282 yards. He did have a bad interception, and he also, snuck in for a score. But I mean, that was a game that you kind of have to just kind of wash your mouth out, try to take the L and just try to grow from it and move on from it. And it's really the only way you learn is by making mistakes and going through struggles like this, where that at some point you're going to need to beat a team through the air when they're putting 8-9 in the box every single time. And Cam Scatteraboo, he did have those 2 rushing touchdowns, but again, not the best game for him. He actually ended up the team's leading receiver with 6 catches for 117 yards. He had that long 66-yard reception, which was fun to watch. But again, the O-line's got to be better up front, and they got to scheme a little bit better to try to get him out in the open field a little bit more. So. And then we talked about Miles Rouser. He did have a nice game, aside from that bad personal foul, 9 tackles, a sack, and 3 pass breakups. So, some good things to take away individually from this game. Yeah. But with the penalties and whatnot, still a hard pill to swallow. And this kind of felt like going in was a very winnable game.
Yeah, Keyshawn Elliott had a nice good numbers too, and very timely getting to the outside and shutting down the edge. And he's still the leader out there. It's very, very key. And I'm hoping his leadership and his vocal, his ability to call the defense and kind of keep guys like Rouser in check will come into play more here as being the senior guy. I mean, Rouser's good. I mean, there's no, and you don't want to see him lose that edge, but you got to just turn it towards the team and not. It's got to be about team and not about any one particular play.
Show that emotion and play with that emotion during the between the whistles. But when the play's over, celebrate with your team. Celebrate, take pride in what you're doing. But there's a right way to do it, and he certainly didn't do that when he got a sack on 3rd down to get them off the field. So he can't be standing over a guy like that. That turned out to be a major play in the course of the game. And as we will after every defeat here on Running with the Devils, what we learned, presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Support local athletics. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, a couple things, and this is kind of something that we suspected going in, because there had been a couple times where ASU had struggled to run the ball. They struggled against Texas State, but they were still able to throw the ball. But if they're not, if they don't have the run game going, if the offensive line is struggling, if they're not able to, pick up those first downs, keep the drives going, on the ground, they're just not. They're going to have a hard time winning games. They're not built to win in a shootout. They're not built to win when they're forced to throw the ball, more than probably 30 times a game. They got to be able to run. They utilize their rushing attack, control the clock, keep chains moving, and keep opposing offenses off the field. For the most part, that's what they're going to need to do to pick up wins at least at the moment, while Sam Levitt continues to grow and develop. And then discipline's still an issue. This is something that we thought had kind of gone by the wayside with Herm Edwards' exit. This was something that was harped on a lot when Dennis Erickson was here. Discipline issue, shooting yourself in the foot with bad penalties. It's hard to succeed when you're beating yourselves with stuff that could be probably avoided. I know that they had a face mask penalty that was kind of incidental, just kind of a guy reaching out, trying to grab whatever's there, and he happened to get the face mask. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do there. But just trying to be a little bit better with some of the pre-snap stuff needs to be better, and not taunting when you make a great play, because again, that's something that the refs are just gonna flag you for almost every time.
Sure. And so what I came up with was it was a loud. I mean, their crowd was into it, man. Throwing tortillas.
Well, I mean, Texas Tech played when Texas Tech played here. There were a lot of Texas Tech fans. They're passionate. Yeah. They travel well. Yeah. They're a good fan base.
But I think we're going to have to get used to that level of intensity on the road, and it's probably good to get this out of their system and get set the bar as far as expectation of what being on the road with a boisterous crowd looks like. Our right guard situation was really bad at times, especially when we tried to run off that side. We got no push, and yeah, I don't know if we fixed it, but Nua's coming back, Sean Nua, so that will help.
Cade Briggs did not look 100%.
No,
he had some bone spurs.
You could see him limping at times. Yeah. He was limping badly, and on some of those plays that I've watched in practice, they're designed for him to get a push and to turn, and he's not walling off on people at all. The turn was not there.
And then his movement was severely lacked, and it just seemed like no matter who was lining up across from him, they were beating him off the ball every time.
They came over him twice in one series. Came off his left side. It was not pretty, and so we've got to fix the right guard situation. We were on both sides of the ball. I was not really pleased with how the physicality at point of attack. We just did not, and I know we're capable. So I think that's something we're good.
Yeah, we've shown that, absolutely.
Yeah, and then obviously we've talked about the mental mistakes here, and I think that's not indicative of a Kenny Dillingham team program. I think that can be fixed. I think the players themselves are very good at. I've watched them in practice do the up downs and the running after practice when they make a mistake. So there is a lot of accountability going on here, not only from the players but from the coach's standpoint. So I think that is a fixable thing. So that's to me, those are the things we learned.
Yep. So that is our what we learned segment presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. We always appreciate Valley Athletic Booster Club and everything that they do. Now, this is a question that I kind of, in a loss like this, where it's kind of uncharacteristic for them to have as many penalties as they did, and then some of the decisions that were made as far as when management. To do things, when to hike the ball, when to go, some of the strategy, especially towards the end of the half. And I have to ask you, Big John, did this young coaching staff actually learn more from this loss than the players?
Yeah, I think because we were down a few in personnel. I think we're relying a lot from somebody up in the booth they're calling down personnel packages that they want to see based on what your opponent is doing. I think that's kind of hanging them up a little bit. And I think while clock management is a huge part of the game, I mean, with things like 2-minute drills in place or the 2-minute warnings and things in place, you're right. It's absolutely essential that you know how to manage the clock and how to run a 4-minute drill, how to run. And we're going to touch on some of this in a minute when we talk about our efficiency inside the opponent's 40 and being able to convert. I think you're right. I think the coaching probably the coaches probably learned as much as anybody here, in terms of what their kids were made of, and I think to a man they're all pleased with the fact that they didn't quit, that they were still showing effort out there, and that they were not rolling over by any means. I think they didn't let the fact that they were getting beat at certain positions really affect them. It was, the whole mentality of football is next play, next play. Move on to the next play, and they're not letting plays bother them as much as it's probably an underachieving team. So, I mean, the players I think are going to be fine. I think the staff is learning a lot more about how these kids handle adversity, and what kind of plays and positions to put them in.
I think, and especially, that play that, towards the end of the half when Kenny Dillingham got inside. I thought Shimon Medier scored, by the way. I thought that was a touchdown. I thought they should have reviewed it. But, Kenny Dillingham chooses to go quick, go tempo, get the guys lined up quick when the clock is running inside a minute and a half to go in the second quarter before halftime.
Right, before half.
I know Texas Tech's going to get the ball first, second half, but you should in that situation, I think you've got to let the clock run in order to give Texas Tech, because Texas Tech had been moving the ball pretty well. Granted, they hadn't been doing it as well in the second quarter. ASU's defense had tightened up quite a bit, but at the same time, though, you don't want to give Texas Tech any momentum going into the second half. Right. And they, line up real quick. Sam Levitt, sneaks in for a touchdown. They give Texas Tech the ball back with over a minute to go and all their timeouts, and they come down and kick a field goal to take a touchdown lead at the half, and then score first coming out of the second half. Yeah. And the game was basically over at that point.
That's what Kenny was talking about the week. He talked about that going into this game, was the middle 8, how you finish the last 4 minutes and how you start the next 4 minutes of the second half. So I think they'd like to have that back. And I think that they still statistically have studied that, the middle 8 are very critical at least to this team's success.
Well, it certainly was in this game. And that's certainly something that I think he's got to own and, point the finger at himself and say, hey, I got to be better in that situation. I got to be a little bit smarter. I got to be a little bit, even be a little more conservative in that situation, because, this is a team that, again, they're not a high-powered, throw it all over the yard type of team. They're a run first, grind it out, keep the clock moving type of team. And then you kind of go against that philosophy when you rush up there and go quick and sneak it in when you had 30 seconds to go on the play clock on, I think it was first down. Actually. It was a first down play.
It was first down.
You could have wasted one down, and granted they were at the one. It wasn't that wasn't necessarily effusive to the situation, but still, I mean, there's things that you can do to try to work some more clock and not give Texas Tech the ball back when they had success moving the ball to that point. I understand the strategy there. You want to steal a possession, try to come down and get some more points before halftime and steal the momentum. But I don't know. I think you get a touchdown there. It's a 4-point game going into the second half. The momentum's on your side, especially when you scored those 10 points in the second quarter. I just, that's one of those things that's a head scratcher and make you go, this is a game, but he got out coached and out schemed a little bit with some of the things that Texas Tech was doing as far as stopping the run. So like ASU, when they were throwing the ball, were running too many long developing things when they need to start getting their quick game going. When Texas Tech is obviously blitzing or obviously trying to gear towards stopping the run, they got to get their quick game in gear.
And I'm going to make the point.
Try and steal some plays from the opposition.
We had a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1 where it was up, and to me both of them were they were 3rd and short, really short one, and 4th and a short one, and we chose to we couldn't execute. And to me, what had worked in their first 2 games, which we used a fullback, and we told them we're going to run. I think they're still trying to hide the fact that we're a run first team, and they think they sort of gave the look of a pass, and I thought
that ship has sailed.
yeah, just go ahead and run it. Put the fullback in
Yeah.
and ship off of his right off his rear off one side and go, and get that sustain it. And that one drive that where you had the third one, and the fourth one you didn't make it. That came back to haunt you, I believe. Too.
Yeah,
So,
you got to be able to pick that up against this team. I don't care if they got all 12 in the box. That's something that you absolutely, if you're a run first, that's your identity. You're pound the rock type of team. You got to pick up 4th and 1 when everybody in the building knows that you're gonna run the ball, and you got a player like Scattaboo. I mean, the O line did not get it. There were way too many times where the O line got no push. They were getting pushed back. That's something that coaches have got to look at and go, what can we do to change that? What can we do to try and alleviate some of the pressure on the O-line?
Yeah,
maybe get some other players the ball, get them out in space, try to spread them out a little bit, get them on their heels a little bit so they're not pitting their ears back and coming after us every single play.
No, I didn't like the pad height on a couple of those. Our pad height, they were clearly beating us off the ball because their pad height was lower and they had better drive. So
again, that's something else that coaches have got to drill into these guys as far as technique goes. So a lot to learn from this game for the coaching staff, as much if not more than for the players. So that's kind of as every week here on RWD we like to give a little transition question, kind of get a little discussion going about a game, about last week's game and how it affects the week coming up. And this week will be, an interesting game going up against the Kansas Jayhawks, a team that's kind of underachieved coming into this season. They're actually last in the Big 12 right now with a 1-4 record, and they were picked to finish 4th in the preseason. This team coming off one of their best seasons in recent memory with a 9-4 record. They finished number 23 in the rankings last season. Head coach Lance Leopold had been one of the hottest names in coaching circles coming into this season. And he had a couple of kind of lackluster seasons at Kansas. Every coach did. With he goes 2-10 in 21, finishes 6-7, but they actually went to a bowl game that year. And then wins the Guaranteed Rate Bowl last year. They have a nice ranking. They finished 9-4. Looked like it was going to be, they were going to have they got a bunch of players returning. They did not lose a ton of guys to graduation in the draft. So like this was going to be this was, one of the teams I pointed to along with Utah and Arizona as a team ASU needed to beat in order for this to, when I assumed was going to be an upset to make this a successful season.
Right.
And they're reeling. They're struggling right now in a big way. They've lost to some teams that on paper you would think they would be better than. I mean, they lost, Illinois is a ranked team right now. They're playing very, very well, but still, coming into this game, Kansas was ranked number 19 when they played.
Right.
Then they lose to UNLV on a short week at home. And, UNLV's undefeated right now. They're having a great year, but then you lose to West Virginia in Morgantown. That's West Virginia's having a so-so season. Granted, that's a hostile environment, but it's still a very winnable game. And then they lose at home again by 11 to TCU last weekend. And, you wonder what's going on with this team because they had so many players come back. And this is, it's a solid team. And, I watched a little bit of their game against TCU. It looked like they were, cruising along until late in the game.
Right.
And it just, kind of imploded on them.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about their quarterback in a minute, but and really what's going on, specifically why he's throwing so many picks. But yeah,
right.
I think it's everybody in Topeka's caught off guard by this. They were really expecting to have a great year, and I think we used this term in the pre-show, and that is identity. They really have not found an identity yet. Haven't found their rhythm.
Well, last year they were throwing the ball all over the yard. That was kind of their big. They were a big play, big points all the time. That was kind of their identity. Whereas this year they're kind of struggling to do that a little bit. They just haven't been able to get on the same page in the same way. And they had they really didn't have a lot of guys that lost. Most of their losses were on defense. But they, other than their first game, which was a kind of a cupcake game against Lindenwood, they haven't cracked the 30-point mark this year.
They scored what? 50?
The offense has been an issue. Their ability to score points has been a problem. So, their offense, was, and they've been able to, I think their offense might need to shift its identity to a run first team, because Devin Neal, their running back's been the stud of the team. He's been they're a big part of their offense. They're rushing for 224 yards a game right now. And, Jeff Grimes, the new offensive coordinator, their old OC, left to go to Penn State. And he's got history with ASU. He was the O-line coach in Tempe from 01 to 03 under Dirk Cutter. Yep. And Jalen Daniels not Jaden, Jalen Linnell, was coming in, was expected to have a good season, and he's thrown the ball well. I mean, he's got over 800 yards. His completion percentage is not great. It's, about 55% or so. But the interceptions have definitely been a problem. You mentioned that, John.
Well, it's
5 touchdowns against 8 picks.
But it's where they're occurring. They're occurring inside their opponent's 40 for the most part, and that's something that there's a really neat new newsletter being put together by a guy named Chris Jenkins, who takes his stats from College Football Insiders. And Chris, he does a deep dive on the stats, man. Let me tell you, he's a wonk. And he came up with this thing. There's a thing called the Eccles ratio and the Eccles rate. And that's the ability to score on drives once you've got a first down inside your opponent's 40. We're not doing so great. They're doing even worse. And it's as a result of their throwing picks inside the 40. So I think teams are either stiffening up or they're doing something wrong on not adjusting their routes or their scheme once they get inside the 40. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Metrics are a big part. Stats are a huge part of sports. But when you can crunch numbers all day long and come up with the middle 8. Now the Eccles, and the Eccles used to have another name. It's called the opportunity percentage before, but basically they're doing something wrong, and we're going to take advantage. We're going to key on it. We're seeing it. We see the same stats they say, and we have the same metrics people crunching numbers like they do too, and can see tendencies like this.
That's something that ASU really needs to jump on, because Jalen Daniels, he's not, he is struggling right now through the air. He's throwing a lot of picks, but he's getting it. He has had success on the ground. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns and over 100 yards rushing. But their big weapon this year to this point has been Devin Neal. They're very talented running back. 86 carries, 513 yards, 4 touchdowns. And when he's off the field, Daniel Hishaw Jr. has had a nice season as well as a complimentary back. 38 carries, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And they don't use the running back in their passing game very, very much. Between those two, I think they combined for like 5 receptions. So, that's something else to keep an eye on. They're probably, if they go out the pattern, odds are they're probably not getting the ball. So this is going to be key for ASU to stop, or at least contain their running backs, because they have become such a big part of their offense, and that's been the keys to the limited success that they've had this year has been on the ground. And then a guy who's emerged this year has been Luke Grimm. Lawrence Arnold, who's number 2 on the team, was expected. He was on a bunch of preseason award watch lists. He was kind of expected to be the number 1 receiver, but it's been Luke Grimm who's kind of been Daniel's favorite target this year. 30 receptions, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they find different ways to get him the ball. He's also got 3 carries for 55 yards and a rushing touchdown this year. So he's another guy you really got to watch out for. But I mentioned Lawrence Arnold. He's a guy who's a nice become kind of the number 2 second option, but still very effective and a dangerous weapon in his own right. Kansas's defense is kind of an enigma, because they're only giving up about 127 yards a game on the ground. So they've had some success. Teams have, when you have been throwing the ball a little bit more, they're giving up over 200 yards through the air, but the strength is in their secondary. They got a couple of corners in Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson that look like NFL talent. They're having NFL caliber seasons with some of the stats that they're putting up. You can see there, Kobe Bryant's got an interception and 4 pass deflections on the season. Dotson is kind of considered the weaker of the two. Teams are kind of going at him, picking on him a little bit more, but he's had 3 interceptions this year in his own right.
Nice.
And then at safety, sorry?
No, that's good production.
Oh yeah, and he's taking advantage. And safety O.J. Burrows has had a good year too. 4 pass deflections, 17 tackles, and an interception. So this secondary is probably strength of their defense, quite frankly, and certainly something that another reason ASU is going to need to run the ball to kind of neutralize that right. Secondary. And then a linebacker J.B. Brown's having a good year too. They'll blitz him a lot. He's got a couple sacks and 5 tackles for loss this year. And then their big pass rusher has been Jeremy Robinson. They'll line him up inside and outside. He's got 3.5 sacks to go along with some forced turnovers this year as well. So some players on this defense, and they've had some guys come through. This is Kwame Lassiter's alma mater, and his son was there. He graduated, so they've been able to produce some good players. I always think of Keith Talib, a great corner in the league. He was a Kansas guy. Right. So they've had some success before, and it'll be interesting to see what this team looks like coming in this week. So our keys to the game presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a great nonprofit that builds beds for families in need. We're happy to support, and we love you guys to support this great nonprofit, Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And our keys to the game, mine, I kind of harped on it all season. You're going to hear me continue to harp on it because this is the team's identity. This is who they are. Everybody kind of knows it, but they still got to go out there and execute. And they got to establish the run. They got to control the clock. Don't let this KU offense has struggled at times. They've been very turnover prone. Don't let them get in a rhythm and start finding themselves in your building, against you. Right. And that secondary, they got some dangerous players on there. They've had some defensive touchdowns this year. This is a team that can get after it if you let them. This is a team, ASU, you've got to establish the run. You got to go out there, run the ball, run it early, run it often, wear down Kansas with some of those body blows, and those big runs I think will come eventually once you wear them down. But just get yourself into some third and manageables. Don't commit any stupid penalties that are going to get you behind the sticks, and you'll be able to. I think that I'm confident that they'll be able to pick up some of these third and shorts on the ground, especially now that they're getting Sean Naa back back healthy after the bye. Hopefully that this whole line will be rested and refreshed, and they'll be able to get downhill and open up some holes for the backs. Yeah. And then not chalk Jayhawks. Not chalk. keep Kansas in a slump. They're coming off 4 straight losses. Don't let them snap that streak in Tempe. Don't let them get right on you. Keep them in that funk. Keep them in those bad habits they've been that have killed them this year. And start fast. This is another in ASU. Most of ASU's wins this year, they started fast. They put teams in holes and force them to get aggressive in order to and into some mistakes. So if you start fast against this team, I feel like you put up like 10, 14 points in the first quarter, and force Kansas to play from behind, you give yourself a good chance to win.
So, I can't argue with anything you've said. So obviously we got to run the ball and stop the run. But I think this is a quarterback that if he's going to throw picks, and I think we've got plenty of film now. Remember, they played 5 games. We played 4. So we have a lot more film to see on these guys. And the fact that they haven't established identity after 5 games is a little weird. But this is my big thing. We're not finishing drives, folks. We're not getting points inside our opponent's 40 after getting a first down. That's a big stat. And I'm sure our coaches have picked up on this. So you either have to adjust your scheme, adjust your routes, start thinking a lot more about
play calling.
Play calling is really it's you're not playing 4-down football anymore once you get inside the 40, guys. And of course, we've talked about the penalties and mental mistakes. Yeah, it's pretty simple, folks. Run the ball, stop the run. Get to that quarterback and make him throw, keep him dirty, and make him throw, picks off balls off schedule, and we should be fine. I mean, you can see our defense really. I guess I've been saying all year is our calling card. We're not top 10 by any means, or even top 20 at this point, but we are ball hawks. We are breaking up passes. We are getting, we're making plays. And I think our secondary has a lot of talent.
And Abney and Robinson as sophomores, coming in, not a lot of experience, but I feel like they're getting better. I feel like they're getting better week in and week out.
Yeah. So commendable jobs. Yeah. I mean, our safeties probably still are, and our linebackers are still really our strength. But we've got to figure out ways to finish drives. That's all there is to it. And I know. According to people I didn't get to practice this week, so I didn't. But I expect we are going to. You're going to see the playbook open up a little bit more, so to speak. At this point, you're deep. You're already 2 games into your conference schedule, so you have nothing to lose by opening up the playbook. And there's some wrinkles. I mean, during the previous week they let the players call their own plays. I don't know if you. And one of the cool plays that Trenton ran was he backs up and he throws to his brother, Coben, and Coben pops a 40-yard pass into the end zone. The guy was wide open. It was no one had seen it on defense all year, but it's in the playbook. So there's the wrinkles like that.
The old double pass.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Trenton is so smart. He knew he wanted to set his brother up for a little bit of success and a little bit of notice because he's running scout team third team right now. And he's not traveling, but I think he's. If something goes bad with Sam, I do think you got a very capable quarterback still on the bench, who can finish drives. Anyway, let's see where we go and we do not talk about this, folks, ahead of time. We don't compare notes on scores or where we're going to finish. But it's time for predictions.
It's prediction time, yes, and you and I both. ASU getting to 31 points. I mean, It's kind of been the benchmark for this team this year in all of their wins. They've hit the 30-point mark, and their only loss, they gave up 30 points. So that kind of seems to be the magic benchmark, for whoever gets the 30 points is going to win. So hopefully ASU comes out, their offense kind of gets back on track, use the bye week well, and they'll be able to hang some points on this KU team that's really struggling right now to find themselves.
I would not be surprised, Ryan, if we win this game by more than 9. I would not be surprised at all. I just think on paper we're kind of built for it this week. And I'll just tell you, I think this young team, I think they have responded well to being playing it on the home field, and so. Home cooking and sleeping in their own bed for an extra week.
It's been about a month since the last home game, so
that's right.
They'll come out and start fast and get after it and put KU in their place, because this is a team that's underachieved, and there's no reason they can't. ASU can't keep them down. Keep them down and get them down, keep them down, and pour it on them. So. That's certainly. I would certainly not hate that. I'll say that right now. We'll see what Kansas looks like coming out. Coming off a bad loss to TCU, in their conference opener. Their second conference game. They play West Virginia in their opener.
Right. I'm just going to say this, man. Everybody's making a big deal about the heat. It's going to work to our advantage, folks. I don't think Kansas is going to has seen this kind of.
Probably not.
No, I don't think they're used to it. But the way I'm looking at it, don't let this be an excuse. It sunsets at 6:00. The second half of this game is going to cool off a whole bunch. Don't let it stop. Don't let the heat at kickoff stop you from coming out really and watching on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Get to this game. Show we need 50,000.
Hey, that was one of my keys. Start fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. You gotta do that. And that was another thing. I mean, their wins, except for Grand Texas State, they had to come back a little bit. But against Wyoming and Mississippi State, they started very fast.
Yes.
Get out there and put them in a hole, make them play from behind, and start utilizing that rushing attack. Hopefully they'll be able to get that going, so that they're kind of shortening up this game, shortening up the possessions, and making this not so much of a fight. Especially with Utah looming in a short week. So that's it for us. We say good night. Go Devils, forks up, jolt the Jayhawks. And we're maroon on Saturday.
Maroon Monsoon.